In this video, we're going to go over setting up the work coordinate system for this test part that I showed being machined the other week in class. Basically, this part is sitting up on a couple of parallels, being held in the jaws of a vise, as you saw. Setting up the work coordinate system helps define how the part is oriented with respect to the machine. If you recall, when squaring a vise up on a machine or tramming a vise, this back jaw here is parallel with the x-axis of the machine, or the left and right movement of the table. And once that vise is set up, when we put the part in it, it's also basically this direction here is the x-axis. And so we need to define that. And setting up the work coordinate system is a two-part process where we define the origin as well as defining the orientation of each of the axes. And so typically when we do this in this level of class, instead of having an entire model like this where we have the part and the vise and stuff like that, we're just going to do it for the part itself. So here's the part. Where we want to put the origin is in this back corner, and that is just a convention we use in class. We'll talk more about that later. And so we're going to put the origin in the back corner. This is going to be the x-axis. The y-axis is going to go here, and then the z-axis is up vertically from the part. So once you're in Inventor and have the part open, you're going to go to the CAM tab, which I already had open, and you're going to go to Setup. Once you have Setup, you can see we have the gnomon here, and we have these points that are actually linked to stock material, not the actual model. The stock material that we're using is the same size as the model. So we're actually, instead of here where it says work coordinate system and the origin, instead of using a stock box point, we're going to use a model box point, and then we can actually choose the corner, the back corner of the model. The issue here is that the axes are not oriented properly. We need the x-axis along this direction, and the z-axis needs to be vertical. And that comes from the orientation section, or from the drop-down. I prefer just the first option here where it says model, or select z-axis / plane and the x-axis. So when I do that, it first asks where the z-axis is going to be. And I can actually click any line here, like this line here or this line there, because that's going to be aligned with the z-axis. Or I can select an entire plane, and if I select this plane, the z-axis will be perpendicular or normal to that plane. And so I'm just going to do the plane first to demonstrate it. So when I click this plane, it makes the z-axis perpendicular to that. I'm going to undo that and show that I can also select a line. Now notice that the z-axis is aligned with that line, but it's in the wrong direction. And so I can flip the direction there, or you can actually flip it by just clicking on the arrow in the model. The next thing I want to do is get the x-axis oriented properly. Right now, the y-axis is along the back jaw of the vise. I want the x-axis to be there, so I'm going to click x-axis here, and then I can just click this line here, and it puts the x-axis there. Looking at a top-down view, we can see that we have our x, y, and z is coming out of the page toward us, or out of the screen toward us. That is the correct orientation of the work coordinate system. We have the origin at the right location, and our coordinate system is set up properly. Now I'm just going to go here to stock. Right now for stock, I'm just going to go, instead of a relative size box, right now it's just adding material 40 thousandths to the side and top to the part. Since we machined this out of tubing that was the same size as the model, I'm just going to go fixed size box. Now the tubing was a little bit longer, and so you can make it longer than the 4 inches of the part, and we cut it about 4.5 inches. But if you remember, we faced the left side, and then we use that to define where the origin was. We put it up against a stopper in the machine. We'll talk more about telling the machine about the work coordinate system in later weeks. But right now, what I want to do is get the stock material so it's parallel or flush with the space. And so instead of adding a 1/4 inch to each side of it, I'm just going to go to offset from the -x and put a 0 offset. And that is the little overhang that we had when we cut the stock a little bit long when we machined the part. So that is the first step of the computer-aided manufacturing, or CAM, setup, is determining the work coordinate system. So I'm just going to go OK. And then where it says setup, often I give it a number. It gives it a number by default. Often I call it operation. The operation number you can have set up, but if you click once and then wait a moment and click again, you can just change it. So often I will write like op1 or something like that. You can have it as setup 1. For this part, we're machining just this side. For more advanced parts, we'll have multiple setups or multiple operations. Okay, so that should be good for you to set up the work coordinate system.